Good afternoon. My name is Doc Fabiano, and welcome to Atlantic Beach, suburb of Jacksonville, Florida, where I've lived for a long time. I have just published a book called The Endangered Sales Person's Path to Longevity, and I have also put together a companion deliverable, a seminar on the subject as well. I call it a path rather than a guide, because you have to follow a guide, but you get to choose a path. And choice is a theme in the book. You should have choice. It's written in a conversational tone. It's straightforward. I get right to the point, okay? I read a lot of other books and I want to get to where we need to go as quickly as possible. Now, you've probably all heard the buzz, seen what's going on, but more and more people are starting to talk about salespeople being endangered, talking about how the traditional salesperson is becoming obsolete, talking about how the former methods and processes and procedures and techniques that used to be part of the old sales doctrine are no longer effective, or certainly a lot less effective. Now, technology as well has replaced the need and the value of the salesperson also. Now, how did I get to this point? Well, I'll tell you, after talking to a number of people I worked with some time ago, and then doing a great deal of homework and research, came up with some startling statistics and information. I know most of you are not necessarily turned on to statistics and question their validity, but I can tell you, after everything that I put together, when you look at it as a whole, 2 plus 2 still equals 4, okay? It makes sense. Now, let me tell you something. There's about 12.3% of the population of this country that is in sales. This country spends about $1 trillion a year on sales forces. Right? And here's something. 55% of salespeople today should not be in sales. And 64% are in the wrong sales job. Now, if you think about that, I'm confident you can put your finger on some people that you know that fit that, okay? It's interesting, in this country, however, we spend $12,000 to $15,000 to recruit and hire a salesperson, which is demonstrated to be a very difficult thing to do, not only in this country, but the world. We only spend $2,000 to train them. Doesn't kind of math, does it? Because as a result, 50% of sales managers polled admitted to not having the time to train or nurture their salespeople. Coincidentally, 50% of salespeople admit that they have neither a playbook nor a plan to go to. So it shouldn't be a surprise then that the latest statistic says that about 64% of salespeople in this country are not making quota. They're not closing. Another interesting statistic I found, 80% of salespeople will leave a meeting before asking a closing question. Makes it kind of difficult to make things happen, all right? Now, all is not lost. The question is what to do. We need to think about that, all right? The old way, go into a man's office, look around, hey, that's a wonderful fish you caught. Where was that? Hawaii? Gee, I've been there. Oh, what a good-looking family you've got. That's really neat. Oh, wow. Is that a 63 Corvette picture there? We used to work with that. Made him feel comfortable. But here's the thing. Today, the buyer wants competence, confidence, and also tone. So the salesperson that walks in with that old-fashioned method of trying to gain some personal connection is going to find himself broomed out of the room. Buyer doesn't want to waste his time with that person. buyer expects that salesperson to have done some homework and research to come up with an idea, a sort of understanding of the company, what they do, and what they may need, what problems they may be looking at. So we can begin then a dialogue that doesn't waste anybody's time. Because sales, in the bottom of it all, is a collaborative process. And people don't want to waste time. You have probably noticed that more and more people are buying things online. Look at Amazon. Incredible. My wife is on Amazon several times a week. I'm sure you know people that are like that as well. We want to purchase something. We don't want to pay retail, do we? So we go to a place like Amazon. All right? We used to say years ago, nobody wants to pay retail. But as salespeople, we would say, but nobody thinks they're paying retail. Some 80% of the country owns a smartphone now. And of those people, those smartphone owners polled, they admitted to doing 93% of their buying on the phone, and probably more over the internet. So where do we need the salesperson there? Where does the salesperson have value, right? Buyers want accessibility to information. This is where the salesperson used to come in. Now they can get that accessibility by Googling, looking on the internet, looking for information they think they want. They certainly don't have a guarantee that it's correct, but that's what they do. And in that way, they don't need a salesperson. And frankly, in many cases, they don't really want to interface with a salesperson. So that human touch, what people refer to as touch points, has now basically gone to analog, all right? We've gone from analog to digital. We're not touching people anymore. We're trying desperately to overcome the cyber walls to get a hold of them. Talking to a good friend of mine, excellent salesperson, said one of the difficult things that she and her peers have to deal with now is getting through, not only to make an appointment, but to a prospect, so forth. Why? Because you now have caller ID. So picks up the phone, he knows who's calling him. She knows who's calling him. Got email. Okay, see that? Who's it from? Don't need to worry about it. Got voicemail. Let it go to voicemail. I'll deal with it later. All right. Got a VRU, voice response unit. So when you call in, you have to go through numerous steps to get to actually a real live person. And at that point, they can go ahead and blind transfer you, and the information will follow. And again, you go through the whole process. So it's not as easy, as simple as it used to be. Cold calling these days, my friends, is obsolete. It should be deader than a doornail, and people should just forget about it. It's been studied that if you can make 8 calls an hour, it will take you 6.2 hours to get an appointment. But that appointment doesn't necessarily mean that that is going to turn into a qualified prospect. All right? So that's even more work. So one of the things that salespeople today need to do is to take advantage of the technology that's available to them. Do the homework. Come to understand what's going on. Come to understand where the trends are. But the main thing, as I see it, and many people will tell you this, is that we need to revisit, re-examine basic sales fundamentals and processes and the steps of a generic sales cycle. Why? Well, that's what we used to have. It's hard to dismiss those, really. That's not sales, kindergarten sales. It's almost like sales VPK, all right? Now, you can go out there and try that way, the old way. It's not going to work. We've already established that. But you need that to start building methods and processes that are within the trend, that are timely, where you are now able to adjust, adapt, and overcome the challenges that have come up from that changing business landscape, changing buyers' attitudes, that explosion of technology that pretty much eliminates the salesperson from most activity. They're estimating that, well, 30% of paperwork for a salesperson can now be done within the next 5-10 years by a computer. That's wonderful. Except that now the company's going to say, well, all right, so now you have 30% more time, so I'm expecting 30% more performance. And we may pay you 30% less, depending upon how we look at it, all right? But we need to start paying attention to what's available to us. We need to do our homework. We need to research the customer, the prospect, the methods that are used today. We need to discover how we can take those basic fundamentals and use them to our advantage. I'm a big believer in simplicity. I like Occam's razor, which says that in any given situation, it is the simplest solution that will be the best. Right? And the other thing about living here in Jacksonville, it's a big Navy town. So you don't make fun of the sound of the helicopters. Don't make fun of anybody. What you're hearing right now is the sound of freedom. And you know what, fellow babies? Somebody sold them that. They knew what was needed. They looked at past history. They understood the requirements. They knew the technology. They knew what had gone on before them. And that company, that salespeople, sold the Navy those helicopters. Sound of freedom. So example right there. So you want to research and do your homework before you act. Don't react, act. When you have the opportunity to go into a meeting, plan the meeting. Have a goal for the meeting. Perhaps even rehearse the meeting, okay? And when you come back, you need to sit down and determine if you reached your goals. What was accomplished at this meeting? Do I think it was successful? Were there objections that were brought up that I did not know the answer to? Right? Objections are basically an opportunity in a question form. Does anybody tell you that? That does not change. What you do now is you keep a journal. You come back and you write a few notes about that meeting. Put down, my goals were this. But this is what happened. This is the planning that I did. This is what happened. All right? I proposed X number of people this week, and of that X number of people, only 25% of them bought, which means that I have a 25% closing ratio. How long does it take me to complete the sales cycle? Is that consistent with the product and everybody else? Where am I in relationship to my peers? Okay, am I leading them? Am I equal or mediocre, or am I struggling to keep up? If you're struggling to keep up, you probably need to evaluate whether or not you should be in sales. And the book has an exercise for that, and my seminar, I walk you through it to help you do that. We decimalize it. It's real simple. It's hard to argue with those numbers. But you need to do things like that. You need to come to understand that it's not simple anymore. And we do not need fancy rhetoric or deep psychological methods to do that. Sales today is not a battle. It's not a game. It's a collaborative process. And if you're not willing to collaborate with the buyer, then you may have a great future in the hospitality industry. I don't know. But those are things that you need to consider. I don't want you to think that what I'm telling you here, this, my way, is the only way, all right? Because that'd be proselytizing, and in my mind, that's kind of the hide and conceit, you know? I really don't like proselytizers probably any more than you do. So what I'm telling you is this. If you find this resonant, great. Come to own it, apply it, make it yours, which is something that's critical. All the top best salespeople I knew over the years had that ability to take they knew the basics cold, but they took the basics, made them adjustable and adaptable not only to the prospect they were dealing with, but also the times. And each one had their own stamp on it. Give you an example. You and I can go in to the same customer at different times to pitch him a product. I can go in and do it my way, the way I am, which is pretty much ebullient, okay? You could go in your way and be dead serious. And if you're your way, if it's believable, if you're genuine and I'm genuine, then our ways are going to work, okay? But you can't go in and do me any more than I can go in and do you, which gets it to the point you have to make it yours. Okay, so in the process of retuning your methods to adjust, adapt, and overcome, you have to learn how to make it yours. Okay, how to make what you're sounding sound resonant to your prospect. Now, I was in show business during my first career. Started out as an actor, wasn't very good, but I got into production and direction and so forth. Worked with some very, very good actors. And through them, I learned how to make it yours, how to take ownership. And you'll find in here we have an exercise to help you through that. It makes sense, and it's simple, okay? Now, people buy from people, right? You know that. But nobody's buying from somebody that's not genuine, all right? You come in and you're trying to do somebody you're not, that's not going to work, okay? You may be in love with a particular actor. You may want to come in and try and do him. You may want to try and do the late Robin Williams. Whatever. If it's not you, it's not going to work. You're wasting your time. You're wasting the time of your customer. It has to be yours. It has to be organic, okay? Now, I've written this book and this seminar for 3 different types of people. One are your top performers, because these are the people that are never satisfied with their current performance. They're always looking for a better way, a new way. They want to keep fresh, all right? The next group are intermediates. They're the ones that kind of making it, maybe not, but they're not driving the car they really want, or maybe they're not living in the house they want, or in the location they want. They may not be satisfied with their financial condition, or overall spiritually, maybe they're not completely enthralled with their lives. Right? So I've written it for them too. Okay. And I've also written it for the strugglers. First thing is to help them determine if they should be in sales. Why do you want to spend your life doing something that you're not good at? Thoreau said, men lead lives of quiet desperation. And if you're one of the bottom 5 on the sales chain there, why are you living your life in desperation? You need to find where you need to go and what you need to do. We'll help you with that, okay? So those are some of the things that you'll find. The Endangered Salesperson's Path to Longevity. We follow a guide. We choose a path. I want you to make choices. I want you to use your head, use your brain, make decisions, make good, educated decisions. All right? Now, where can you get my book? Well, I hope you're going to find it and buy it. Of course, it's in all the local places. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. The book is published by iUniverse. You go to iUniverse.com and click on bookstore. You'll get to my book. Can't find it in any of those places? Go to my website, www.endangeredsalespeople.com. www.endangeredsalespeople.com. Okay? And therein you'll find a host of information that'll help you, as well as continual posts that I put up on a regular basis. There's a great deal of information about how, why, trends, things that I've heard that work, things that I've heard that I don't, research that I've done. It will be valuable, and I encourage you to contribute, because I do have a contact page on there. Right? Now, you may be asking yourself, who the heck am I to write this book and be this pedantic? Well, I'm not trying to be pedantic, and don't worry about it. There's not going to be a test on this on Monday. But I'll tell you, I've had plenty of experience because for over 20 years, I worked with diverse sales groups in every state of the Union and Puerto Rico. I worked my way up through the management chain, managing independent distributors into the sales and support and maintenance of my company's products. I eventually ascended to the national sales manager's position. 50 states, every major city in the country. Now let me tell you something, when you're in that job, the first thing you need to understand before you can get them to sell your product, you need to make sure they know how to sell. Therein, I ended up doing a lot of sales training seminars. Then once we got to there, then I did product training seminars. Then I need specific sales training seminars. And besides that, I did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of presentations, whether it would be to influencers or to C-levels. I did them all. They're different as you go up the food chain. C-levels get right to the point. They don't have a lot of time. When they ask questions, answer them then. Not like the other groups where you say, please hold your questions to the end, because that's where the rubber meets the road. I even have a section in there as about how to do a presentation. But the point is, for all of that time, I got to witness, I got to observe, I got to experience many diverse sales organizations. All right? I got to see some tremendous salespeople. Okay? These people could sell blubber to an Eskimo and sin to Christ. They were incredible. But I also got to see sales organizations that were okay with some mediocrity. You know, they were making it, they were kind of getting it every once in a while, and they were okay with that. And then, of course, there was that group that was just struggling. They were just stinkers. It's a wonder why they were doing it, right? You got to ask yourself those questions. But I saw all of those. What I've done is I've compiled that as simply as possible in here, the difference between a top performer and someone who's just there. Okay? Makes a lot of sense. The other thing, and I'll leave you with this, you should have no fear, and you should be very confident. And I'll end with a little story. It was in the middle of the winter many years ago, and here I was conducting a seminar someplace deep in the Midwest. During a break, one of the attendees spoke rather loudly so everybody there could hear him, looked at me, he says, gee whiz, look at that tan. He says, clearly, you don't work very hard at all, do you? Well, seemed like a challenge, but I wasn't going to let it be a challenge. But I wasn't going to let him get away with it either. And I kind of looked around at him and I said, you know what, Scooter? You're right. I don't work very hard at all. I work smart. And I'll leave you with that, my friends. Consider what I've said and always work smart.